Wherever two or more people are gathered, there is bound to be conflict, and that's largely because conflicts are an inherent part of human interactions. But of course, we can actually ensure that we resolve our conflicts amicably, and also make sure that they do not degenerate into wars or even destruction. That is why this morning our focus is on alternative dispute resolution. The new face of conflict resolution in Nigeria, and we've been joined in the studio by two guests. I begin from my far right, Professor Akin Ibidapo Obe. He is a conflict management consultant. Now, apart from the fact that he is a conflict management consultant, Professor Ibidapo Obe is also the President, Institute of Alternative Dispute Resolution Development and Conflict Management. It's a pleasure having you in the studio with us, sir.
Thank you for having me.
And of course, completing the team is Mrs. Chinyere Onora. She is a conflict resolution advocate. Of course, she is the Registrar, Institute of Alternative Resolution Development and Conflict Management, and she can as well. Yes, she is a conflict resolution advocate. It's a pleasure having you in the studio with us as well.
Thank you very much for having me. Thank you.
And I'm not in the studio alone. Simiat, my colleague, is also here. Simiat.
All right, thank you so much for joining us today on this particular discussion. Some have said that there is nothing like conflict resolution, like you don't resolve conflict, you actually manage conflict. I don't know if that is true. As somebody that's been, a consultant, prof, and of course I've been into all kinds of analysis when it comes to conflict management and resolution. Maybe you start with that.
Yes, I think it depends on the type of conflict that we have. Some can be resolved totally, absolutely, and to the satisfaction of all the parties. Others are more intractable. Those ones that are more intractable, then you find a way to manage it and to prevent it from degenerating into blown out kind of fighting or wars or whatever.
Okay, talking about this topic, conflict resolution in Nigeria, we were told that before now we have this system in place. Before the conventional court system, we have the fact that our traditional institutions give priority to resolving conflict in different ways. But now we have that coming back as something that we should actually look into at various levels of the society, because Yoruba will say "Akinti quotable." Ki adiore invariably means that you don't go to the court and then still come back to be friends for people that have issues to deal with. So how exactly is this new phase of conflict resolution in Nigeria, and why is it important?
Well, the fact is that in traditional African societies, we used to resolve our conflicts through the traditional institutions. Starting from the family level, you have the family head to manage conflicts within the nuclear family. And then you have the quarter head. The quarter is a combination of several compounds and families. And that you have a chief there that could resolve conflicts between families. And then if those conflicts take a wider dimension, it could be taken to the king in council. So that is in respect of the chiefless societies like Yoruba land. In the chiefless societies, what we call these acephalous societies, like the Igbos, what you have then are council of elders, and then the age grade associations, and then the guilds, and then the women's societies. These are traditional institutions that are established within the society to manage all forms of conflict that may arise. But as with all things in Africa, the coming of colonial rule made us to, if you like, de-emphasize these traditional methods of conflict resolution. All the powers and all the capacities were taken from these institutions, and then it devolved on the courts. We have now seen from so many years of practice the litigation system that it is not a cure-all. What we now have are delays and, cost and all kinds of negativities that has bedeviled the court system, corruption inclusive. So we are now seeing that the litigation system could not be a solution ultimately, and therefore we are finding that we are resorting to conflict management. But now they will tell you that, oh, it came from Africa. They will now tell you they have now clothed all these in all kinds of theories and all kinds of principles, and then it will appear as if it's coming from abroad to us. But we repackage exactly. We at IADR Nigeria, we are tapping on those traditional resources, those traditional capacities, and we are saying that even in as much as we want to embrace new ideas of conflict management, we still believe that our traditional methods are very useful, and therefore we have to find a way to utilize both. We will not jettison one for the other, and that is why we have a very vibrant customary arbitration department in our institute. So there is a department of customary arbitration, there is a department of conflict management, and there is a department that handles alternative dispute resolution methodologies. So we have 3 departments. So we are finding that if we are able to bring forth all the resources in these departments, we can then utilize it to resolve so many issues in the workplace, in the labor disputes, employment disputes, tribal disputes, ethnic and religious disputes.
Now let me come to you, Mrs. Onuora. Aside the fact that alternative dispute resolution is like an attempt to take away the burden which is on our traditional courts and the rest of them. Simiat said something earlier on, and she quoted a very, very important Yoruba proverb that you cannot go to the court or take your neighbor to the court and then come back and then you still remain friends. What is that benefit really that alternative dispute resolution, have on parties who are involved in the conflict?
Okay, thanks for that. When we look at it, okay, let's just take a scenario for business, a business scenario, contractual agreement, and then there is a dispute arising, or there is a disagreement, and then once that person is taken to court, it protracts that. You will never, and it will take years to resolve, and even if they resolve, they will never get back to that business. But ADR does it in such a way that it will be written in the contractual agreement. Then once we have a disagreement or an issue to be resolved, we go back, we get an arbitrator, a mediator, or a neutral to resolve that particular scenario. And once that is resolved, we go back to business. We go back to fulfilling our own sides of the contract. What is as beautiful as that? So at the end of the day, we still have our businesses intact. Because many times we go to we go to court, and then we never go to fulfill our own obligations because we become enemies. Then again, the speedy response, the way manner in which the disputes are resolved is of great importance. So we don't have us going to court and staying months on end or years on end. It can be resolved, like a mediation session can be resolved in 1 or 2 sessions. It can even be resolved in 1 session. and then we go back to our businesses. You understand? And then and then when you come to mediation or arbitration or anything like that, when it comes to matrimonial causes, especially mediation, you see they're trying to resolve marriages. We're not trying to break the marriages. We don't want a divorce. We're trying to see how we can mediate between the two parties. So more or less, we're trying to say that these contractual agreements can continue, you understand? And we're not trying to make enemies of each other. We just want a resolution, and then we continue our business. So it's speedier resolution process. It costs less. You're not thinking of filing fees. It costs less, and then the most important thing is that we come out being friends and then continue with the business or continue with whatever transaction it is we have.
Does it also entail making a pronouncement on punishments, imposing fines on probably whoever they are found to be?
We cannot call it fine to say or punishments to say, but they are more or less compromises and concessions. Do you understand? If I'm going to get this, then it means I have to leave this. And it goes either way. So when for instance, I concede something to you, and then you compromise as well, you understand? And then it goes either way. At the end of the day, we just come to a resolution. So it's not, so to say, fines. Because when you use that word fine, it takes us back to litigation. So more or less compromises and concessions, that is what it will actually entail.
Now, looking at this whole arrangement, it's like you don't want people to be going to the courts to seek redress and the rest of them. And then one would actually wonder, that for an organization that has quite a number of you in your institute are lawyers, and yet you are saying people should not go to the courts to go seek redress. Are you not indirectly asking people not to come patronize? Because whenever people go to court for anything, they patronize lawyers. And so if people are not going to the courts, they will not be patronizing lawyers. And so it will mean that lawyers would not be benefiting from the whole process. Or do we have lawyers also being incorporated in this alternative dispute resolution setup?
But the truth is that because of the fact that we are professionals, lawyers, has made us to see the kind of worms that the court system is all about. If an average case, if you file it at the High Court, particularly a land matter, for example, before it can get to the Supreme Court for final resolution, it's an average of 15 years. Many a time, the parties, or one or so of the parties may have died, and then you have to start another process, look for somebody who will succeed and continue that suit. We know the cost of litigation. In Nigeria, now only politicians can really afford lawyers, because they are the ones that have the funds to, litigate issues to no ends. So the experience we have gathered from our practice is that a lawyer does not necessarily need to really advocate in the courts alone. Our job as lawyers, and now we call ourselves conflict managers, is to resolve conflicts. So if you can bring parties together to resolve their dispute amicably, why must you go throughout the court process? Why must you spend 15 years when you could spend, like my colleague said, when you could spend a couple of weeks? When you would then finish, and then you would build relationships, you would build continuity, there would not be any hard feelings. So as lawyers, I've been in the business for so many years, 40 years. I'm also a professor of law. I don't see any contradiction between encouraging the practice of conflict management and then going to court. If you still want to go to court and you insist, that nobody is forcing you. Parties have to agree to submit whatever dispute they have to the alternative dispute resolution or conflict management mechanism. So it's a matter of choice. And people should have choice. In a country of 250 million, we need to have so many platforms and options.
Well, Mrs. Onawara, he's talking majorly on the practice of ADR. And I'm actually a member of the Institute of Chartered Mediators and Conciliators, and I did my intern in the Mediation Center, that's Lagos State Mediation Center. And you look at the practice, for instance, getting parties to come to the table is always more like the most difficult part, without using force. And we are a people that understand the normal court system to mean that you're going to have the police or enforcement take place and all of that. And along the line you see the letters being dispatched that you give the parties now. Of course, you have to stylishly domesticate the practice in our own context. Maybe they deploy a policeman to go and, or a security agent to go and issue the letter to the parties so that it will carry a little bit of weight, and so that the parties will respect. And you also have the judiciary, that's for the Lagos State Mediation Center now. You have coming from the judiciary, and they still see these things. So some said, like my colleague said, the court system, the conventional court system that we have, still trying their best to remove, the kind of all the processes, involved in going through, justice along the line, implementing that, or adding a little bit of it in the practice of ADR. I don't know how how you feel about it and what can be done to ensure that it is totally, voluntary for parties to participate.
Okay, I'll go back and I'll answer it in two ways. First of all, what you should know is even if somebody comes for mediation and it is court ordered and the person doesn't want to go through it, he can step aside and say, I don't want to go through this. So that you should have that at the back of your mind. Now, what we are trying to do is, going forward, knowing that it's not actually mandatory for you to go through these processes, we're trying to encourage it in your contractual agreement. If it is in your contractual agreement and the ADR clause says you must use this first, nothing would derogate from that. You must go through that ADR process first, whether it's arbitration, whether it's mediation, or whether it's any of the hybrid processes. So we have to get it into the consciousness of all lawyers, the consciousness of all professions. Because before you do anything with anybody, you should have it in paper, in black and white, your contractual agreement. So what we're trying to do is to make sure that before you have any contractual agreement, there's an ADR clause or a mediation clause, which either way, either of the mediation windows you want to use. So having that going forward, it won't anymore be a hard or maybe a compulsory, or making it more or less the two parties having force to tell you to go through that ADR process. So if you have it in your contractual agreement, definitely you have to go through that ADR process, and it more or less lightens the load. But also know that even if the court says you should go through ADR, especially mediation as well, and if you get to the mediation process, you can tell the neutral, I don't want to continue, and you can actually step down.
Prof, the peace scholars would say that when you have lawyers be the ones to bring parties together, there is also this fear from the parties that they are lawyers, they might be subjected to all the conventional law practice, and so they say, and other people should come in, and they would not be wearing, the royal gown, sort of, and definitely they will do the job better. So where do you place the expertise of lawyers and, of course, other coming from other backgrounds in this practice?
The ADR process, conflict management process, has been opened widely to all professionals. As a matter of fact, it's very useful to have these other professionals coming in, because you never know the kind of dispute that is we are going to have. It may be a dispute relating to malpractice in the hospital. It may be a dispute relating to negligent construction of a skyscraper. So if you have engineers, lawyers, and all, doctors and all other professions, accountants also, coming in for the training. That's why the ADR training and the conflict management training is open to all. So, and you will find that we are trying as much as possible, and our institute is trying to do that, to remove all vestiges of legalism and technicality from that process, so that even the lay person who is neither a lawyer nor even seriously educated will be able to key in and buy into that process.
I'd like to make a little contribution to what he said. Going by the process now we have in the country, we have the AME, which actually is a very rich law as it is. So we're trying as much as possible that even the non-lawyers that come in for our training, we go through each and every step of the act. So at the end of the day, you have more or less what you're taking, you ought to use to practice your ADR, and you know everything from the first section to the 91st section of that law.
The AMA is the arbitration.
Yeah, the AMA, the arbitration and mediation act. So when you're able to have access to that and you're able to understand what it actually says, you've actually removed all the vestiges of every legal thing you can think around, because you, as maybe as an accountant, going to sit before disputants, know where to refer to, where to actually go in order to settle the matter, because you're able to understand every section of the law. So that is what we are trying to do at the institute as well.
Can we also highlight some of those disputes and conflicts that can be brought before the ADR for mediation and for resolution?
Okay. Well, that's why I mentioned that we have 3 departments. Sometimes we try to keep these departments separate. The alternative dispute resolution really consists of arbitration, mediation, negotiation, and some hybrid processing. That means a mixture of either arbitration and mediation together, and so on and so forth. So usually this ADR is usually useful in commercial disputes, commercial, industrial, corporate disputes. That's where so that it can be speedy, and then it will not involve long litigation. Now, when it comes to conflict management, where we are talking about national, ethnic, religious, workplace-related, students and whatever kinds of conflicts, then that comes under the rubric of the conflict management department. And then, so the types of issues that we are now faced with would be, I have been wrongly terminated, or the students are having a riot, they are fighting the management. Then when you call us in as consultants and experts, we can then deploy our skills to bring the 2 parties together, management and students, to ensure that whatever is in dispute is speedily and amicably resolved. And then the 3rd department, which is the customary arbitration. We believe that 80% of our citizens are still in the rural areas. They are not exposed to all the modernities of the metropolitan areas. So we believe that those traditional processes which have been in place from time immemorial should continue to be encouraged. The Supreme Court, in several cases, but notably in the case of Agbu versus Ikewebe, which was in 1991, has stated that any dispute that has been resolved by, if you like, a traditional or customary forum like the chief, like the guilds, like the age grade, that kind of resolution will be accepted by the court, and it will create what we call res judicata. So you can't go and litigate it. So, but the problem there will be because of the rudimentary procedures that usually attend palace courts and all these courts, we want to bring some modern tools to bear. Recording, transcription from the Yoruba language or whatever language. When we bring these modern skills into place, then it will more readily be tendered when the matter is, when one party wants to go and litigate it, we can then say, oh, look, these are the records of proceedings. Right now, what you have is that because there are no proper records, when the court wants to, another one party goes to litigate the matter, he has to call all the witnesses, all those people that participated in the hearing to come and testify in court. And you know how Nigerians are afraid of going to court, particularly. So once we bring these modern tools to bear in the customary arbitration process, it will then be more readily adaptable to the, if you like, the legal system, because we will then be able to say, look, the chief, the council of elders in so and so community have sat on this, and this is the record of proceedings. These are the people who participated. These are the witnesses who were called. So we are bringing in those modern tools to customary arbitration to make it more readily, accessible and useful to serve as I said, res judicata. Res judicata means this matter has been dealt with before, so don't litigate it.
Probably as we go in the conversation, you would actually cite instances, cases that through ADR has been resolved, and what really happened and how you went about resolving them as we go in the conversation. But I know there are people who would actually fear that in a situation where you have one of the parties in a dispute with more influence and more resources in the society, an average man, going to ADR against somebody who has more resources and who is more powerful than him, might actually want to not have confidence in that process, that justice would actually be done. And so some persons may want to pull out and say, no, I'm not going to, I'm not doing ADR with this man because he's more powerful than me, he has more resources, he can easily buy the set of people who are, on that table. How do you handle such situation and then restore the confidence that, no, we would actually deal with this matter the way it ought to be dealt with?
Okay, with that, I'd like to say that we have a panel of neutrals. So if that comes to bear and you feel you cannot trust maybe anybody in your community, we have a panel of neutrals. You can come to the institute, and then we'll select, and then we'll put the panel of neutrals out for you. You can select anybody you want, maybe from within your ethnic group that understands you, or understands your tradition, that would actually sit as a neutral in that. So basically, that's what we're trying to say, that we're going to train those that are willing to be trained, those are willing to be trained in the processes, especially if you come to the Yoruba land. There are certain traditions peculiar to them, like the Idigi and then the Obi-Ojori, and then we train them in such traditional tenets, and then we put them in a panel of neutrals. So when you think that your people or whoever is in your community you might be prejudiced against you, then you can come for us and we'll get you someone from the panel of neutrals. That is one way we're going to deal with that.
If I may add, what happens is, usually when the ADR process is consensual, the parties must agree. As you said, there may be inequality. The person who has been sacked from Shell and who wants to go to arbitration will be saying Shell is a big company. Maybe they will now say this is the fees which the arbitrators will charge. Shell will be able to pay it, the sacked employee may not be able to pay it, and he will feel at a disadvantage. And we have also seen that our institute is the only institute that combines the three platforms: ADR, conflict resolution, and customary arbitration. And why we have done that is that if there is any kind of inequality of resources on the part of the disputants, those who are coming before, then you have an array of forum to choose from. You can either go to ADR, where you are going to pay the arbitrators, or you can go to conflict management, which is more of less costly in any case, and more of less help you to resolve the dispute. Or you can go to the customary arbitration. The customary arbitration will take care of those who are in the rural areas who do not have sufficient resources to engage highly paid arbitrators. Then they can then use some of their own traditional tools that they have confidence in. There was a research that was done in 2012 by the British Council, and they were asking the respondent, do you have any confidence in your traditional rulers or your chiefs? And almost 70–80% said that is where they repose their confidence. They believe that any dispute that they take to the Oba or the chiefs will be resolved satisfactorily. Not only are there traditional controls over the Oba in terms of our tradition and all the taboos that are involved, the people also have that belief that, look, this is my Oba, and he will do justice to the case. So having these, if you like, tri-platform that we have gives an array of options to everybody that wants to leave the court system alone and look for other less costly ways of resolving any matter that they have.
All right, let's look at the Nigerian state and the adoption of ADR, to resolve, conflict in the society. How much of adoption, how much of acceptance is this practice, accepted by the government? And of course, looking at the different security challenges we're having in the country, some have said the reason we are not having meaningful headway is because government negotiators have not really been the expert in the field. They're not really engaging the experts in the field. We look at some kidnapping cases that happened in some parts of the country, and you have key people being mentioned to go and do the negotiation, and along the line they say, they are not really engaging the people with the expertise along the line. So how do you react to such information, and how can we engage better experts to deal with national issues surrounding security?
This is why institutes such as ours are important, because what we bring to the table is knowledge and information and expertise on how these things can be tackled. Look at the issue of political disagreements arising from elections and so on and so forth. I think for about 4 or 5 years now, there has been the Peace Committee, the Kuka Committee, consisting of religious leaders, and these are not governmental agencies. These are individuals who have come together. And what we have seen is that whether we like it or not, they have contributed. The people will come and sign agreement not to fight and so on and so forth, and they have been effective. So that is one level of. So that's why I say Kuka is not a lawyer; he's a religious person. So we have the capacity as experts to look at a particular dispute at hand or conflict, and then bring together the kinds of people who can have the understanding and the capacity to resolve those disputes. Government has embraced ADR up to a point, and that is why I said that we have had an arbitration law in place even tracing back to 1914, before the colonial, before colonial independence. But what the Nigerian government has done, particularly with the new law that came into place in 2023, the Arbitration and Mediation Act, is that they have seen the importance of this level of conflict resolution and alternative dispute resolution, and they have embraced it. And what they have done, try to do, is to systematize it, so that it just won't be all comers going into it, and and then that will really spoil the stew. So what they are doing is they have made rules now. They have to guide the practitioners to regulate the practice of ADR, conflict management. But I would say that they have not gone the last hog that we have done in our institute to find a way to include customary arbitration as a viable and equally useful tool to resolve dispute, because what they have done is that they have excluded almost 80% of our populace by just concentrating on alternative dispute resolution. So I'm looking forward to a day when the AMA will then have one or two sections that will say, well, every decision that has been made by the traditional courts or the chief in council or the family head or the age grade association and so on and so forth, that these decisions would be respected and will not be interfered with. That when a matter has been submitted to these traditional bodies, the police will not go in and say, oh, we still want to arrest you, or we still want to intimidate you, and so on and so forth. So if that is included in the law, I think we will have a well-rounded arbitration and conflict resolution system.
All right. I found out that you are actually an expert in African law and religion, human rights, criminology, and constitutional law. And of course, you found you're the founder of West African Regional Center for Law and Religion Studies. And you look across Africa, they say there are traditional methods of resolving conflict in different parts of African states. And of course, some have said that we should, at any point in time, invest time to get to know how other African countries actually resolve, conflict. Look at the case study of the Gacaca court in Rwanda, where there was the conventional court system couldn't take care of what happened, the genocide. After the genocide, what happened, and of course they had to use that method, pushing the justice for the victims of that war. So how much of investment are you doing in other African countries to get the kind of solutions so that might be incorporated into the system of ADR in Nigeria?
Yes, thank you very much for that question. And I think that your reference to the Rwanda Gacaca court is a very, very apt example. That shows the power of our own traditional mediation methods. When I was dean at the Faculty of Law, University of Lagos, it was when I founded the West African Regional Center for Law and Religious Studies. And when we founded this, one of our projects in the we call it work class for short, was to what we call the African Traditional Council. As a matter of fact, we started in West Africa, but then I was invited to Ethiopia to give a paper at a conference on the platform of that organization. And when I got to Ethiopia and I presented my paper, after the paper, one of the Ethiopian ambassador then called me and said, look, this thing that we are doing in West Africa, we want it to be an Africa-wide event so that it will involve all the traditional rulers and so on and so forth and so on and so forth. So we are working on that forum So instead of making it what I call TRADCO, West African Traditional Rulers, we are now having our African Traditional Council on law and religion. We know that religion is one of the most volatile areas of conflict, and that is what the focus of that group is. But it can be widened to other conflicts. But that is to say that the concept of resolution by traditional rulers and elders is being embraced at the Pan-African level, and very soon we'll be having conference. We have gotten support from the United Nations, and very soon we are going to be having a platform that will really be able to press forward with that.
Let's talk about your institute and the program that you have before you.
Okay. Our institute was actually was giving birth to, more or less, having looked at what we have on ground in Nigeria. Most institutes were either arbitration or mediation or other forms. So we now said, okay, no, let's give birth to, we thought of giving birth to this by calling it Institute of ADR, Alternative Dispute Resolution Development. I hope you the clause there, development, yes. Now we're going to consider the traditional or the conventional alternative dispute resolution mechanisms, such as arbitration, mediation, negotiation, MEDAB, and so on. But we think also of us as Nigerians, what's really, we are to develop things that actually suit our own socio-economic and political scenario. So that was why we added that word development, and then it's conflict management of Nigeria, limited by guarantee. Now, basically, we're having our inauguration on the 16th, that's about 3 days from today, on Saturday, where we have had people from various walks of life who love ADR, who love conflict, because I know the whole nation is getting volatile. We can't live with each other. So they came up together and said, no, let's try to see how we can get people living how as it used to be. You can live in any part of the country freely. So that is actually the concept behind the institute. So it's the Alternative Dispute Resolution Development Institute and Conflict Management Institute. And we're having our inauguration of the institute and accreditation of the council members on Saturday. And the learned professor here is the chairman and president of council. Okay, so yeah.
Now, if anybody wants to, I mean, who are those who can actually be part of the institute? If, for instance, somebody has interest in what you are doing and wants to be part of it, how does a person go about it?
Basically, anybody can be part of it, in as far as you love peace. Resolution of disputes and conflict, and you want to learn more. You want to learn more about the laws guarding these principles, or rather these ADR processes. You're welcome to the institute. What we train you first is the conventional mode, the ADR. So we have a robust syllabus that constitutes of all ADR processes, and you're going to study that in 6 days. You're going to study arbitration processes, you're going to study mediation processes, you're going to study negotiation processes, you're going to study MEDAB, ABMED, and other developing forms of ADR. Thereafter, you can now, you'll be inducted as an ADR practitioner. Then you can also on your own, you want the customary ADR. You can study that as well. We have a platform for study of that. Then you want to also study conflict management. We have that as well. So it depends on your area of interest. And then we have, we're going to go online soon, bringing out the dates for all these trainings, which people can, in as far as you're able to understand the concepts of ADR, and you're a graduate, and then, but we're actually concentrating on graduates now, because we're able to know this after graduation from the university.
I was about asking whether there is a
there's a catch there. Yes, there's a catch there, because you're going to study the law, and you have to understand the law as well as you go on. But the ADR, the expert there, will teach you the step by step, all the provisions, all what you ought to know about ADR, conflict management and customary arbitration, or customary ADR for that matter.
Just to explain a little bit further, there are different cadres. You can be an associate and be trained and obtain your certification as an associate. That one, you do not have to be a graduate. You may be a student, you may be a worker, so long as you have interest. So when you come in as an associate and you are trained and you have your certification, over time you can then move to the cadre of membership. And then if you are certified as a member and you have practiced and done one or two things in the ADR platform, then you can then be upgraded to fellowship, which means you are a chartered arbitrator or a chartered mediator or whatever. So just not to exclude those who are not graduates, we have decided that you can start at the very first level, which is the associate level.
Now tell us where the inauguration is actually coming up, and of course time, and then who are those people that would actually be gracing the occasion?
It is at the Lagos Resource Center, which is in Victoria Island, in Lagos, where the program is starting at 11 o'clock. As the registrar said, we are not only inaugurating the association, we are accrediting our council of members of council, governing council. We have 50 of them. We have judges, we have professors, we have all kinds of people there. But on that day, the chairman of the event will be Tunde Busari, SAN. He will be the chairman of the occasion. The keynote speaker will be Professor Hakim Ogunyono. Olanino of the University of Lagos. So, and then the CG of Ogun State will be there. Justice Sherifat will be there. So many other people that we have, we have a 50-member council because of the different departments that we have. And these are experts in different fields.
We must thank you so much for your time with us this morning, and of course we cannot but wish you the very best in this that you have before you, and we also hope that this initiative would actually be embraced by all and sundry, and of course it would actually help us in resolving and also preventing conflicts in the society. Of course, we'll be speaking with Professor Akin Ibidapo Ube, a conflict management consultant, and of course Mrs. Chinyere Onwora, who is a conflict resolution advocate. Of course, it's a pleasure having you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having us.
Yes, Simat, we have to go.
All right, thank you so much for being a part of today's edition of New Dawn. New Dawn continues on Friday, and definitely what's more job will be here tomorrow. Keep watching it.